Aloha and welcome. This is going to be about nonviolent communication, and nonviolent communication was invented by Mr. Marshall Rosenberg, and it's a beautiful form of really communicating people. And we're going to go over a whole process on what it is to learn about it. And in that process, before I start that process with this book that I'm going to share with you, you're going to understand. I want you to first and foremost recognize that what's important is there's going to be some rules before we start. NVC is the process of communicating from the heart and wanting to make a connection with somebody. Too often people shame, blame, criticize, critique, and use that in a sense of manipulation to get what they want. This is not about that at all. So the rules for communication, first and foremost, is you have to have a sincerity in your heart that wants to reach out to somebody and make a connection. Number one. Number two, it has to be a request when you're trying to make something happen for yourself or trying to get something from. It has to be a negotiation, let's say, meaning that you have to be willing to hear the word no. If you're not willing to hear the word no, then you're really just trying to get what you want, and you're not really open to understanding the principles of NVC, and you're also not willing to hear the needs or requests from somebody else. Not only does it have to be sincere, it has to be authentic in the sense that we really want to come from a place. I mean, a lot of times most people communicate a lot of words, but it's their body language in which people see as well. Our words themselves only apply about 30% of the information that's conveyed. So we really want to make sure that we come from a sincere space. We want to make sure that we come from a place where we're really open-hearted and ready to connect and wanting to connect. And what's also important is to recognize when we're triggered, which who hasn't been triggered? When that does happen, there's going to be a part of us that might not be able to drop into that real true sense of NVC, of wanting to communicate and make a connection. At which point I'm a really firm believer in what I call timeouts. Because let's admit that more often than not, when we are in a place of triggered, over time, the heart can relax, the mind could find a place of peace as opposed to being really triggered and wanting to get your point across or really wanting to defend yourself or all the different nuances of how we communicate back and forth. So again, I want to state that we really have to have a sense of sincerity in our heart. We have to be willing to hear the word no, because it's negotiation. We want to get what we want, but at the same time, what's most important is we want to really make sure that everybody's getting something out of it. It's a negotiation. It's not my way or the highway. It's really about me wanting to really get what I want, but I also want to make sure that you are getting something out of it too. So it's not a coercion. I'm not persuading you and in a sense manipulating you to do things that you don't want to do. I want to make sure that we're on the same page. You know, I'm a big believer in teamwork makes the dream work. Would you agree?
Absolutely.
You know, so that being
Donnie's an amazing coach at this, so.
Well, thank you. You know, the point is that we all want to have that sense of peace of mind, and empathy and compassion. NVC is also known as compassionate communication. So I'm going to share the screen right now, and we're going to continue to talk, and we're going to just show you some of the steps of which the NVC process works and how to really formulate it in your mind so that you can really apply this in all the communication that comes across. Let's face it, how many times have we come across people that are grumpy, trying to we feel we're being manipulated, that aren't really being kind in their communication. They're being direct in an angry or frustrated way. And how does that make us feel? It doesn't make us feel good. So my process here is to really try to demonstrate to you how and give you the tools in which you can kind of diffuse things in a really natural way. That you don't have to defend yourself, you don't have to attack, of course, that you have to really try to find a place of connection, understanding, communication in a way that we are trying to understand each other's feelings and needs and valuing them. Now, I'm not saying in every situation where we're in a negotiation, all of our feelings or all of our needs are going to be met. But it has to be something that we feel good about. It has to be win-win. That's a crucial part. It can't be from a place where we're trying to get what we want or or we feel manipulated into giving somebody else something that they want because they're bigger than us, they've got more power than us, they've got all, they basically are trying to get what they want without caring about what our feelings or needs are. And that's a really important criteria in which we're trying to get across here with this nonviolent communication, that it's a tool. It's going to open up a window in which we can communicate to others in ways that create more empathy. Now, before I go into this package that I'm going to share with you, I want to just point out first and foremost the main tool that really is going to diffuse, we'll call it negative energy. It's going to diffuse bad energy, for lack of a better way of saying it, and create people willing to listen to our own feelings and needs, is empathy. So if I could tattoo anything in the fleshy tablets of your memory, empathy, empathy, empathy. If you don't know what to do, start with empathy. Empathy first and foremost, because empathy is one of the greatest tools of which Marshall Rosenberg demonstrates and practiced in his own life, and all of the mediation practices that he did. I have seen him talk hundreds of times to couples, to mother-daughters, father-sons, with people that had, something was going on between them that wasn't feeling good. They might have been really good friends, but at that moment they were angry, frustrated, pissed off, or whatever you want to call it. And he would bring them up on stage and he would demonstrate empathy, or he would communicate his empathy to them to the point where both of them really understood that they both have very common values, or minimally they both have common needs. And when they understand each other's needs, and really who doesn't want people's needs to be met? Now, of course, a lot of people come across thinking, well, I don't want to be needy. But it's not about being needy that I'm talking about. It's really finding a way to communicate your needs in ways that aren't blaming somebody else for not meeting your needs, that aren't shaming somebody else for meeting your needs, but more importantly, or you say it from a very neutral place. I'm really having a need for respect right now, and I'm not feeling it between us. I just want to know how we can really create that kind of connection. So that being said, I'm going to go ahead and share the screen right now, if you'll let me. And let's see, where it is, right there. And here's our nonviolent workbook. And this is going to be something that you're going to have available to you that I really want you to print out, because it's really it's the glue that holds us all together. And it's only 7-8 pages long, but it's worth its weight in gold for you. So I'm going to scroll up. Here we go. And this is what we call the compassionate communication 4-step process. And the 4-step process is very simple. The 4-step process is an observation, a feeling, a need, and a request. Observation, feeling, need, and request. Now I want to point out that this is what comes directly from Mr. Marshall Rosenberg's book. And having seen Marshall Rosenberg for dozens and dozens of hours speak and communicate about nonviolent communication, one of the things I've noticed is he rarely uses this 4-step process. So I say that in that we want to understand the 4-step process as a way of evaluating our experience with people as we communicate with them. But it doesn't mean that we should always go to the 4-step process. Remember I said the glue that holds us all together is empathy, 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 empathy. And the more that we really recognize that if we get confused or don't know where to go, if we go to empathy, we'll never, ever lose, is what my experience has been. So again,
But the four-step process is definitely
training wheels.
Training wheels. I love that. That's
Absolutely,
exactly
it's
right.
training wheels. It's a way to think, because we're always in a situation where we're trying to understand people's feelings. We're trying to, of course, we all want to get what we want. That's just one of the human nature, is we want to get what we want, and yet the most important part of getting what we want is making sure that other people are getting what they want. So there's no victims. There's no people that are angry at you or frustrated if you feel manipulated by you, because what is that going to accomplish in life? You might be getting what you want, but are those people going to be at your side when you in need, when you're in trouble, when you've got an emergency that you need? Of course not. They're not going to care, because they're going to feel taken advantage of, manipulated, coerced. They're not going to be your true friends. We want to surround ourselves with people that are loving, caring, compassionate, and really understand that we're not about getting what we want. We're about all of us. We're about teamwork. We're about all of us getting our needs met. So again, observation, feeling, need, and request. So I'm going to go ahead and move to the let's talk about the observation first. This is where people make the mistake the first and foremost, because as we observe things, the rule of NVC is that it has to be something that could be videotaped. Has to be something that could be videotaped, meaning
And played back.
and played back. Right. An observation is a quote. It's not like why are you speaking loud, or why are you angry at me, or it's a quote. When you said when you said I'm really angry at you, that would be an observation. That's because if you say that, it's really hard for anybody to refute that. If you say, why are you talking angrily at me? That's a matter of impression,
That's perspective.
Perspective,
And we
that's
take
right.
it through our own
We
filters.
take it through our own filters, absolutely. So as the observation has to be something you can videotape. It has to be something that a quote is work great. It is something that is extremely valuable in the moment and not the day after. Because if you try to quote somebody the day after, it's a strong possibility that they might not agree with that's what was really said, unless you have a recording of it. So again, it's got to be something you can videotape. It has to be expressed in a way that's not snarky, blame, shame. It has to be really just a very neutral place. So I can use my son as an example, because he was one of my great teachers in life. And let's say I walk into his room, and I have previously made an agreement he was going to clean up his room. So I walk into his room, I'm like, now this would be the opposite of nonviolent communication. God, Clay, look at this place. It looks like shit in here. I mean, it's just really dirty. Of course, let me just step aside for a second. Dirty is a matter of opinion. And there's what's dirty to one person could be clean to somebody else. But of course, when I say it's dirty, that's kind of a blame shame attack. It's dirty, and you told me you're going to clean this stuff up, and I'm like really disappointed in you. Now, the nonviolent communication observation was, wow, Cleo, I'm feeling a little sad right now. Let me tell you what, I'm seeing a pile of clothes here, and I'm seeing a pile of clothes there, and I'm noticing your bed's not made, and I'm seeing your garbage can, and it looks like, I'm gonna guess you've been playing maybe basketball with it, and you missed like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 times. Here, let me put those in the garbage can for you. So that's an observation. And as you might agree, hopefully, it wasn't snarky. It wasn't like, I see a pile of clothes here. And no, I tried to make it very neutral. Now that was the observation. Now my feelings, and I feel sad. And I really feel sad right now, and disappointed. I'm going to say a need. And I'm needing more respect in your communication, because you told me you're going to you were going to clean this. Now my request, would you be willing to clean it up now? Again, would you be willing? I'm giving him the option, because I don't know what he's going to say. He could say, Dad, I've got to go to work right now. I am so late. I could say, well, could we do it together? Would you be willing for us to just do it together real fast? Or he might say, I got to go to work. I promise you I'll do it again. And then I will hopefully trust his intention and hold him accountable for that. The point is that we all want to be seen. We all want to be understood. We all want to be respected. So again, the observation has to be something that could be videotaped. It has to be something that, a quote is great. If someone walks in the door and the door slams, it's like, why are you slamming the doors? That's kind of that's not an observation. I could say, John, when you came in, the door slammed and it sounded very loud to me. That's the first step. Now, there was not like, it sounded very loud to me, and that would be that's kind of snarky. John, it sounded kind of loud to me, and I'm a little confused. I'm wondering, is everything okay? Are you feeling angry? I have a need for understanding. So again, as we set up our observations in life, more often than not, they can be snarky, attacking, criticizing. I mean, that's exactly what we don't want, because that's what sets the tone for the communication from after that. We make a comment on something, and all of a sudden we're in an argument. God, where did this come from? It came because we did not really express ourselves gently. We expressed ourselves in a condescending, potentially attacking, corrosive tone that just did not settle right with the person listening to it. And of course, what do? They go into fight or flight. They start defending themselves, or they start attacking you back, and all of a sudden you've gotten into an argument. Now, my experience is when those arguments start to happen, it's very rare that they go to some place that's a beautiful conclusion. As the heat starts to build, it doesn't usually go to a good place, and I think you'll agree with that. So as we come to that place where we're in a communication with somebody, as we're starting to listen to what they're communicating, if we feel like if we're feeling maybe attacked, or we're feeling shamed, or we're feeling blamed, or we're feeling these things that make us react, the first step, first and foremost, is to respond with empathy. So I'm going to continue on with our list right now. The next page we're going to go to is called the feelings inventory. Now, these are beautiful human expressions of, feeling. This is what life's all about. I mean, this is when we feel grateful and excited and inspired and exhilarated and joyful. This is why we're here on this planet, to experience these feelings and to relish in them, and to find people that support us in feeling these ways, because this is part of what the greatness of life is feeling really wonderful and engaged and refreshed and inspired, right? This is the beauty of life. So these are the feelings we experience when our needs are being met. When our needs are being met. And I think you'll all agree, these are all really, the why we're here is to experience these, and more importantly, to recognize them and feel why it is that we, to recognize that, find different ways that where our needs can be met. But I'll move forward. Let's go to the next page. This is our feelings inventory when our needs are not being met. And let's face it, who has not felt afraid, confused, disconnected, tired, embarrassed? These are all human feelings, and they're legitimate feelings. There's nothing wrong with them, but they indicate in some way or another that your needs are not being met. And that's a crucial part of this, is to recognize when your needs are not being met, and recognize when other people's needs are not being met. To make that kind of distinction, because as we do that, as we have that compassionate outlook on things, we start to really have a much more understanding of why people do the things that they do, or how they do the things that they do. Marshall Rosenberg used to say that no matter what happens between humans, and humans have done some really nasty things to each other. I mean, everything from physical violence to rape to theft and just all kinds of brutal things, killing, that they're really, each individual is really trying to get a precious need met with this very messed up strategy. So I'm going to go to the next page, which is our needs inventory. And these are all irrefutable, undeniable human needs. We all have a need for connection, honesty, play, peace, meaning. I mean, they're undeniable. Now, I want to point out that on this needs list, money is not on that list, because money is a mere strategy for getting some of these needs met. Water, sometimes we have to buy water at the store. Food, these are money is a strategy. Heather and I, we have a team of people here that work with us at times, and they have a beautiful place that we put them in. We feed them quite elegantly. There's no money exchange that goes on, but their need for housing, their need for food, and potentially even other needs on this list are met, because we do an exchange, we do a trade, and they don't have to spend money on rent, or they don't have to spend money on food necessarily. So again, I wanted to mention that Marshall had said that, no matter what kind of horrendous things people do, is they're really trying to meet a precious need with a really messed up strategy. And the point of that is to really have compassion for them. Is if we, instead of getting into the blame, they're evil, they're screwed up, they've done bad, instead of going to that place, that the more that we can really try to understand what it is they're needing and why it is they did that, the more we can have a deeper compassion for them. Heather and I, we have this Ho'oponopono practice that we work on, and we share it a lot with other people, many people. It's the art of forgiveness. Because when we are able to forgive others, when we're able to have compassion for the things that have happened, and with the NVC model, we can start to understand why or why they might have done something that we didn't like or we felt taken advantage of or unrespected, disrespect for. The more we can do that, the more we can forgive, the more we can really create, in Hawaii we call it create things that are pono, to create a pono, because the Hawaiians believed that if two people were grumpy and frustrated with each other, it would drain their life force. It would drain the life force within them, and it would slowly create dis-ease and death. So in the Hawaiian tradition, if Heather and I if we felt like we were angry and frustrated, we would grab a kahuna, and the kahuna would listen to us, and I'd get my one chance to tell Heather why I'm really pissed off and angry and frustrated. She could, of course, get her one chance to do the same. And we would agree to cut the cord right there and then, because as we did that, we would free up the energy and bring back the life force. And so we're secretly harboring a grudge and being angry and frustrated and blah, 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 as us humans can have been known to do. And in the Hawaiian tradition, ironically, if I was to bring it up again in a snarky kind of way to somebody behind Heather's back, the Hawaiians would throw me in the lava. They would kick me out of the community because I had not honored my agreement. I had not really honored my word. That was the power of Ho'oponopono in the Hawaiian tradition. And it's a great lesson for all of us to look at all the things we hold grudges against, hold judgments against, all the myriads of human emotions that come from a very negative place that we put out there. So I'm going to keep moving on here. This next session is what I called evaluations masquerading as feelings. And for all of you that are watching this, I'd like us all to take a look at the left, that list on the left: abandoned, abused, attacked, belittled, betrayed, that whole list. And this is a 2-page list. I want to show you the second page. And to recognize that these words, from my perception, should be taken out of our vocabulary because they're really attack words. It says evaluations masquerading as feelings. What's really happening is you're feeling something or needing something, but you're using, you provoked me, you ripped me off, you rejected me, when that feeling of rejection is really you're feeling angry or hurt or scared or defiant. You have a needing for belonging, having a needing for inclusion, having a needing for acknowledgement. But when you say you rejected me, it's like you're kind of, slapping them like, aha, you rejected me, But that's not a level, that's not that's not a form of communication that creates connection. It's a form of communication that creates rejection, it creates separation. And it's not, the NVC language is about creating connection. So
saying I feel rejected.
Yeah, I'm saying, wow, Heather, I'm imagining you might be hurt, or maybe you're scared, and I'm also thinking.
But is saying I feel rejected, is that like you're saying that's like a judgment? You're kind of judgment, putting it onto blaming someone else for
It's a
your,
blame shame word, you know. Yeah,
so feeling, saying, I feel hurt or angry, scared.
that's much more cleaner, cleaner. You know, there's not, you know, there, we use.
I can see the ripped off one. I feel ripped off.
Yeah,
I mean,
you're feeling angry, you're feeling resentment, you know, and
it's kind of a strong judgment.
it's a strong judgment to somebody else. And of course, you know, what happens when they hear that, they're going to defend. What do you mean I ripped you off? I definitely didn't rip you off. And it doesn't create a level of communication that goes right to the heart of trying to find a resolve and a connection. Now, again, NVC is now, I'm not saying that we're here to love everybody, you know, and feel totally open and vulnerable to everybody, but we want to really surround ourselves with good people. But as we come across people that maybe don't follow that path or don't have our best interests in mind, as we apply empathy, we can start to gain understanding and we can start to diffuse the energy. You know, when someone says you're rejecting me, you know, instead of me saying I'm not rejecting you, I could say, wow, John, are you feeling angry right now? You know, I mean, are you feeling hurt? You know, I'm imagining that, you know, you're needing maybe some acknowledgement. That's going to come off a lot more in creating harmony when somebody's trying to say that you rejected me. And I'm not saying that it's not possible you haven't rejected them in some way or another, but as we listen to people's needs and feelings and we respond by an empathetic guess. Now, one of the things I've noticed, having taught this NVC process, there's a lot of people, is women generally have a much more easier connection to empathy than men. And of course, I've met women that to me didn't seem to have very much empathy, and I've met men that had lots of empathy. So it's, you know, I'm not saying that it's always that way, but generally women, being that the people that have raised children, you know, raising a child, especially from the ages of 0 to 2 before they learn to speak, requires a certain level of empathy because you're trying to guess what this child needs. So women generally, their right brain has been wired more strongly towards empathy. It's more of a natural thing for them. Now, I would have to say that I think all of us would agree that if we all had more empathy in our life, if the world was filled with more empathy, the world would be a better place. And of course, if it was up to me, I mean, Heather and I have taught this in the schools before, and I wish that schools would almost make it a prerequisite, because as we learn empathy, as we learn our feelings and needs, as we respect our feelings and needs, and of course from that learn to respect others people's feelings and needs, the world becomes a better place.
Can you give an example of how to give empathy?
You know, empathy is really, really, really simple. As we look at our previous lists that we mentioned, let's go in there. Empathy is purely, now mind you, the true definition of empathy is like putting yourself in somebody else's shoes, which is beautiful. You know, I'd like to say that it's not necessary. We first start with a guess. When we're guessing what people are feeling or needing, it is truly a guess. You never really know unless they completely practice transparency and express it to you, you know, very, very clearly. So if you're looking at somebody,
Okay, so how about an example? So I just got fired.
wow,
I'm
Heather, I imagine you're upset right now. You know? You know, when I say I'm imagining, because I don't know, I'm guessing that must really feel frustrating for you. Did I get it right?
Yeah, I mean, I thought I was doing a good job, and
Yeah, man, I really hear you. And I'm imagining you're concerned about what your next job's going to be.
yeah, and how am I going to pay the rent? Like,
Yeah, you know, I'm sure that's can be. I'm sure you must be frustrated. I'm guessing.
it's very frustrating.
Yeah, yeah. And, you know, there's a big difference. You go, you got fired. That sucks. You know, man, what are you gonna do? You know, that's not really gonna create the connection as if I just go, wow. You know, if I start to apply empathy first. Now, I have done a lot of relationship coaching, and One of the big takeaways from relationship coaching that I like to tell men is tell me more. You know, see, men generally, generalities are generally are the fix it type people, you know, and women are generally more emotional people. Generally, and I'm not saying this is, you know, true to fact for everybody, but generally men tend to be fixers. If you see they're the ones who are in the garage, they're the ones with the screwdrivers. Now women could be incredible fixers themselves, but the point is that's a generality. So a lot of times, if you look at the needs inventory, we all have a need to be heard. So women will express themselves in ways that are like, oh, I'm really feeling this and feeling this, and the guy will immediately want to be the fixer. Oh, you shouldn't be doing that. No, no, no. What you really should be doing is you should, you know, and of course, generally speaking, people don't like to be shit on. You know, they really want to be heard. So if I listen to my wife and I say, wow, honey, I can imagine how frustrating that is. Tell me more. And and she expresses more, and I'm going, wow, wow. Tell me more. You know, now I'm trying to gather information. I'm trying to understand what her feelings and needs are. And she's expressing herself. And at the end of it, I go, tell me more. And she goes, that's really it, Donnie. You know, that's all I got to say. I'm going, wow, I really feel the frustration. You know, now my request is going to be, would you be willing to let me tell you a solution or tell you a suggestion? Or, you know, again, would you be willing? Because if I say that and she says no, what's the point? You know, wait, no, I'm going to tell you anyway. You know,
Okay, so another thing is like, you know, often we say, oh, I need to know how to do NVC when something happened and everything's blown up and we're not getting along and we can't figure it out. I can't figure out how to communicate to you. So, I love the principle of taking a connected time out.
oh,
So knowing when to, like, sometimes you don't have the bandwidth to go through these needs and feelings and try to have empathy for the other person. So
absolutely.
when is it important to take those timeouts? Or what's your opinion
Well,
on that?
I'm a huge believer in timeouts, because timeouts are a reflection of being triggered. You know, sometimes we're triggered, and when we're triggered, it's hard to get to that special place where you're really wanting to make that connection and come from a loving space. You're triggered, you're pissed off, you're angry, you're frustrated. That's not going to really create a connection. So when is it the time anytime you're feeling triggered, feeling anxiety or frustration yourself, you know, to say, you know, honey, I can see our conversation is not going to a very good place right now. Can we just pick this up? How about we take 5? Or how about we wait till tomorrow? I mean, depending on how charged up the energy is. And I'd be willing to bet that 5 minutes or an hour or next day will create a much more safe place for us to reconnect. Now, we've all had these kind of conversations where we felt like things were going nowhere, you know, and in a sometimes people won't give you that option. Honey, I really wish we could take it. No, we're going to deal with this right now. You know, and that can be really frustrating for you. You know, that would be an opportune time to go to the bathroom or something. You know, and hopefully,
How about self-empathy?
self-empathy is a crucial part. It's hard to give empathy if your own empathy cup isn't filled. And I'll say it again, it's hard to really give others empathy if your own empathy cup isn't filled. So before you can really give empathy, you've got to, you can either self-empathize, go, wow, you know, John is being such an asshole right now. It's like, oh, okay, but he's really important to me and I really want this to be, you know, so we're self-empathizing to the point where we can just start to fill up our own cup and, okay, take a breath. Let me communicate with John, and because I really want this to work. I really want to make this work. You know, Marshall Rosenberg used to say, before you respond to somebody, count to 1,000,000. And what's he really saying? He's saying that we all, a lot of times people respond too fast, and as they respond too fast, what ends up happening is they say things they really, you know, really weren't well thought out. Maybe they speak quickly because they're triggered. They've got automatic responses that can be snarky or condescending or derogatory. I mean, the list goes on, but aren't kind. And when we can take a breath, really breathe into what's going on as opposed to just shooting back a response and just go, wait a second, I'm feeling a little overwhelmed by the energy right now. And I really want to make a connection with you, but I just want us to really just take a moment and look into each other's eyes, and would you be willing to do that? It's a much kinder way of reflecting when the energy is going wrong,
Yeah, or even sometimes reaching out to an empathy buddy, like a
Oh,
friend,
absolutely.
neutral
You don't,
party. And this is an important practice, is to learn how to give, others empathy who you're not even in the dynamic of the um, issue with them, but you can
absolutely.
hold space and
You know,
offer empathy so they can get their empathy cup filled up. And so then they can step back into that conversation feeling
yeah,
more
feeling
peaceful and empowered.
peaceful, empowered, and able to drop into themselves in that more compassionate way and to reach out to the other person who they might have been in a conflict with or feeling a little edgy. Do that in a way that really creates more connection. Ultimately, we want all of our feelings and needs to be met. But most importantly, we need to be able to express our feelings and needs that don't shame, blame, attack, criticize others. You know, as we can do that, as we can find ways to express, I'm having a really strong need for honesty right now, and I'm feeling a little confused by what you're saying. If we say that, I'm feeling a little confused what you're saying. I'm just wanting to know how that resonates with you because I really want to connect with you. And as we open up our kindness into our words, as we open up our sincerity into our words, you know, that inevitably will come back to you and really make a big difference. So let's continue on. I can talk forever here, but I want to continue on. So again, let's state that the evaluation masquerading as feelings, a great homework piece is to go over that list on the left, look at all those words, and ask yourself, are those words that I use? And if you do use them, look to the right of the list and go, what am I feeling? What am I needing? And how can I communicate that instead of using a snarky word like you abandoned me or you're attacking me? Because if you're feeling attacked, I'm really feeling scared right now. And I'm having a need for safety. It's really hard for someone to argue with that. You're attacking me. What do you mean I'm attacking you? That's usually the response. Of course, if they're physically attacking you, you need to get out of that situation, obviously. But we say that we use our words in, I remember asking Marshall, nonviolent communication, that's kind of a weird title for your book, and he goes, well, people speak really violently with their words. And I think all of us would agree that we've had experiences in our life where we felt really verbally attacked, by somebody being really angry and abusive with their language. It just didn't feel good, and like, So again, the nonviolent practice is something that takes practice. As I share all this, it's not something that you're going to just instantly walk away with this, oh, of course, I get it all. But it is something to practice. And this package that I'm giving you, like I had said earlier, is worth its weight in gold. You really want to spend some time with it. So let's go to the next page. This is what we call, remember, we've talked about the feelings. No, we talked about the observations. We talked about the feelings. We've talked about needs. We've talked about feelings masquerading, or what was this? Evaluations masquerading as feelings, and what words not to use so we can have more connection. And last but not least, we're going to go into making requests. Now, I love requests because, ultimately, life is about negotiating things to make our life better and creating things that we want and making people, not making people, but being, inspiring people to give us what we want. And hopefully they're experiencing what they need as well. So a request gets us in the now. It has to be something that people can do. It has to be something that's positive. It cannot be what you don't want. And it, again, like I had said earlier, it has to offer a choice. You have to be willing to hear no, because if you're not willing to hear no, then it's a demand. I also want to mention that a request has to be, has to be, or let me go to down at the bottom of the pages here. Please do not fulfill my request if you're doing it out of guilt, shame, fear, or duty or obligation, because you think you should. No one likes to be shit on. To gain my affection or acceptance, or because you're afraid of how I will act if you don't. These are really crucial place to really stand by in your own purpose of getting what it is that you want. You're not trying to blame, shame somebody in the thing. Please fulfill my request if you're doing it joyfully, if you're doing it as a need to contribute, if it meets some values of yours. Now, I'd like to recommend that as you print these pages out, that you take some of these quotes and memorize them. One of my favorites is, would you be willing? Would you be willing to do this? Would you be willing to help me with this? Because you're all that, it's just a much kinder way than do that. Help me with this. It's much kinder. It gives people the option to say, I really can't right now. I've got something else I'm going to, well, thank you for sharing that. Because you don't want to blame somebody into helping you. You don't want to shame somebody into helping you. You don't want to manipulate people into helping you. You want to create that balance. So would you be willing is a key phrase in the NVC language. The first one on the connection list, would you be willing to tell me what you just heard me say? I love that. It's very, very important to me, because how often have you said something to somebody, explained something to somebody in detail, only to discover that they didn't get it. They didn't do it right. They just totally messed it up, from your perception. Would you be willing to tell me what you just heard me say? Is it your opportunity, as you're explaining something to somebody, to make sure that we're on the same team? And in the NVC model, we never assume that people understand what we're saying. We take full responsibility for what people understand. And in order to take full responsibility, you have to ask them, hey, I just explained a bunch of things to you. Would you be willing to tell me what you heard me say? And as they express it back to you, you can listen intently. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And go, wow, Johnny, thank you. I really appreciate you expressing back to me that way. And I can see where I made the mistake. I wasn't clear about this. You're not blaming, oh, that was wrong, and you completely got it wrong. I can see why I made the mistake. I really thank you for sharing that. And let me go a little bit more detail in this point here. So at that point, once we've done all that, now we're really getting the understanding that they really get where it is and why it is, how it is, what it is you're trying to explain. Let's go to the next one. Would you be willing to tell me how you feel about what I just said? This is a beautiful form of communication for people that really care about each other, or maybe relationships especially. Would you, I just said something to you, honey, how did that feel to you? It gives her a response and gives her an opportunity. The whole point of NVC is life is a negotiation. Life is a communication. And I will say, in order to really get what you want, you really need to hear more and say less, because the more you understand what people's needs and feelings are, the more you can really start to give them what they want in order for you to get what you want. And that just seems like a much more kinder and efficient way than just blaming, shaming people into getting what you want. The third one, can you tell me what needs of yours will be met by saying yes? And that's a beautiful phrase. What needs of yours will be met by saying yes. Of course, that's going to be more appropriate with somebody that's more along the lines of NVC. So when you're saying what needs of yours will be met, they're like, oh, wow, that's beautiful. Thank you for asking. And they will express themselves. The action request, number 2, would you be willing to do this? Would you be willing to tell me your opinion about this? More often than not, we work in lots of situations where we're trying to express our needs, express our feelings. And it's really, really, like I said earlier, important to hear what other people's feelings are, what other people's needs are, what other people's opinions are. because as you get that information, it allows you to really go back into yourself and try to understand them in a deeper way, which will really motivate them and inspire them to give you what you want, as opposed to try to manipulate them to do that. The guessing request, would you like me to? Would you like me to hear me? Would you like me to summarize? Would you like to hear my opinion? My opinion is the perfect phrase for when you're asked, when you're, it's a couples situation. You know, gee, honey, thank you for sharing all that. Would you be willing to hear my opinion on that? This way, you're getting a buy-in, shall I call it. If she says yes, then she's open for it. If she says no, which is her option, remember, would you be willing? It gives her the option to say no. You really give it her, you know, she might not want to hear your opinion. I've certainly been told that before, and I totally honored that, you know. And sometimes I feel like my opinion could be really valuable, you know, and so I might say, wow, Heather, I hear that. I hear that you don't want to hear my opinion right now, but I think I got something valuable. Maybe I can bring it up again tomorrow. Maybe. Okay. Well, see, you know, okay. Meaning, I'm not jamming my opinion down her throat. I'm not forcing my truth is better than yours or anything like that. I'm getting buy-in. You know, I think that's an important part of this experience in humanity, is that we get cooperation and buy-in, and you know, people are really acknowledging each other as opposed to trying to manipulate, push out of the way, blame, shame, you know, all the things that humans can do. I'm going to go to the next page, the last page, but last but not least, and there's some similarities in this. These are all the connection requests and requests for one-on-one dialogues. Would you be willing to tell me what you just heard me say? We kind of went over that one before. Would you be willing to tell me your understandings of my feelings and needs? These are really powerful questions that really reflect to people. Hopefully, you're going to be asking these questions to people that are more influenced into the NVC model. Because, you know, if you went and asked that question to somebody that wasn't familiar with the NVC, they might go, what? My feelings and needs? What are you talking about? So the point of I'm trying to make here is that we really want people around us to recognize that we really do care about their feelings and needs. So when we ask a question like that, they're not like, what the hell is that? What do you mean by that? You know, would you be willing to tell me your understandings of my feelings and needs? It gives them a really great opportunity to create a connection. Let's go to C. Would you be willing to listen to me talk about my experience? This is a powerful question, because how often have you been in a situation where people are, you know, someone's trying to get something out of you, they're really, or maybe it's even your boss, you really should be doing, they're dominating the conversation. You know, you're like, would you be willing to listen to me talk about my experience? You know, creates balance. You know, again, I've always said that the NVC model is really about gaining information, listening more than necessarily talking. The more we can listen, the more information we can have, the more understanding we can have what people possibly need or are feeling. And as we understand that, we can really start to formulate our own way of finding ways to give them what they want so we can get what we want. You know, and this way, it's not a manipulation, it's not a coercion. It can be purely reciprocal in that we are both getting our needs met, which is the ultimate goal in life, is that both people are walking away with a smile on their face, feeling like they got something of what they wanted, or hopefully all, but at least something that they really feel good about, and they're willing, you know, because it's all a negotiation. Let's go to D. Would you be willing to tell me how you feel about what I just said? Now, that's a powerful question, and as we ask that question to others, we start to get a reflection of what it is the result of our communication is, you know, how it's being reflected on. And it can be something that could be very, very, very powerful, that question. I like to say that in the NVC model, one of the crucial elements is to not talk too much, is to give people small chunks of information and then get a response from them. How often have you listened to somebody that goes on and on and on and on? You're like, oh my God. It's hard to track them, you know, because they might say something and you're like, you start thinking about it and they just keep talking. You're like, whoa, 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 there's just so much information here. So in the NVC model, the preferred way of communicating to others is to really do it in small chunks, small bits. And then you can even follow it up with
Let
a
it
question.
land.
Let it
Right?
land,
Yeah,
yeah.
and ask them to reflect back what you
Ask,
said.
even better, ask them to reflect,
Would
because
you be
that way you're
willing to-
getting
Would you be willing to
response.
tell me what you just heard?
Yes, she said it so beautifully. Couldn't have said it better. You know, that's why we love each other and are together, because
We try, we practice.
we practice this. Because, you know, I can just say that in life, relationships are going to be, and children are going to be, you know, two of your greatest teachers. You know, they will push your buttons, and in doing so, you get great opportunities to practice your NVC modeling. I'm going to throw in. I'm going to go down to number 2, request addressed groups, because like I said earlier, teamwork is the dream work, and you know, getting people to work in a team, getting them all on the same team. You know, we're only, you know, takes one bad apple to spoil the barrel, as they say. You know, so it's important to get everybody on the same level of understanding. It's important to get people on the same level of commitment. It's, you know, generally speaking, and it's important to get people to really be in a cooperation so that the team is moving in the same direction. So some of the questions are: would you raise your hand if you're not willing to do X? You know, or would you raise your hand if if you'd be willing to dialogue with me about this, to make sure that if you've got a group of 10 people that are all trying to accomplish a similar goal, or the same goal, that we're all working in harmony, we're all working together. Would you be willing to spend some time with me discussing this? You know, I'd like to hear a few people's feelings and needs about in relationship to what I said. These are all great questions on here. And the point I want to continuously make is to take these 2 pages, these request pages, and look at them, study them, and underline a few of the questions that really reflect with you. And don't be afraid to rewrite them. You know, say them, get the gist of what they're saying, but say them in a way that sound like you. Don't sound like Marshall, or don't, you know, so that when you ask it, would you be willing to tell me what you just heard me say? Some people might go, what planet did you just come from? You know, it's like, wow, another way of saying the same thing would be like, wow, John, I'm not sure if you're confused with what I've been saying. You know, could you reflect back to me what you just heard me say? So just to make sure we're on the same page. I'm saying basically the same thing, but I said it more about where I'm coming from and reflecting the moment with whom I'm speaking with. And that's an important part to take away from all this. That you want to sound like you. You don't want to sound like somebody else. You don't want to sound like a book. You don't need to sound like Marshall. But you want to take away the essence of what this communication is all about. You know, whether you're asking somebody's feelings, asking somebody's needs, asking somebody if they're understanding your feelings and needs. You want to say it in a way, you know, like you could say, "Wow, John, you know, you're looking frustrated. I'm detecting maybe you're frustrated right now, and I'm just curious what you're feeling right now." You know, now that's a beautiful way of asking somebody what they're feeling, and you know, the chances are is they're going to give you hopefully, some really clear feedback. You know, there's definitely a large variety of people. Some people are much easier expressing their feelings and needs. Some people are more quiet. Some people you almost have to coerce it out of them. But ultimately, the point of this is that you're trying to express to the world, or to express to your world of the people that are around you, that you care about their feelings and needs, that you respect their feelings and needs, and that you want the same from them. You know, we give what we get. So let's go ahead and stop sharing. So that being said, we would love to support you in ways that, you know, anything, especially empathy, of course, because empathy is one of the great tools of life, one of the great, something we all desperately need. And to let you know that we're on your team, you're part of our Ohana, and we'd love to be a part of your life in ways that we can share NVC and share empathy and find out what it is, what's alive in you, what's really important in you, what are your goals in life, and so we can all assist each other in getting there. I believe that we're all here to be part of the solution. We're all here to find ways to contribute. Heather and I, we work really hard in our own temple to support people with sound healing, with music, with self-care and healing. And I think that's just, part of the process for all of us is we want to find ways in which we can contribute. Because as we do that, the angels applaud and we find ways to find real true happiness in our own souls and hearts. So it's been a real honor. It's been a real privilege for me to talk about NVC. I hope it has inspired you in some ways. I hope we can inspire you in some ways and feel that inspiration come back from you, because we love you, we care about you, and we welcome you into our ohana. We welcome you into our class of human beings that are here to make a change on the world, part of this great awakening. And mahalo nui loa from Maui.
And let us know how your nonviolent communication practice is coming along, because it is a practice.
Absolutely, it is a practice. And I'm not perfect. Heather will be the first to tell you, but I'm trying and I'm working at it. And we would love to hear from you. We would love to share. We're a phone call away. If there's anything we can do to support you, to nurture, to give you empathy, to coach you or help you, let us know, because we're here. God bless.
Thank you.
Aloha.